die. Hey, swing those hips around. Can't stop, won't back down. My ladies, short, tall, thin or wide, always down and ready to ride.
Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Gene. You guys are watching Primed and Lubed for episode 21, season 4 on the 23rd of March, 2025. He is Canadian. Guys, I didn't want to get political on this episode. I never want to get political, but there's certain things that you have to stand up on and stand up for. And I'm going to get into a big discussion. If you told me Connor McDavid would be out, Leon Draisaitl would be out, and that would be the top story coming out of Edmonton this week, I would have told you you're absolutely delusional. But that is, in fact, unfortunately the case. And I'm going to get more into this subject on the NHL this week when I get into that subject there. But what I seen and heard on the news, and that is absolutely disturbing, as I am going to get more into it on that, but someone decided to vandalize the Gretzky statue just outside of Rogers Place by throwing feces on it. I don't have any pictures. I was thinking about putting those pictures up, but I'm just like, I'm not going to do that. I am not going to give you those pictures because to me, it's such an act of disrespect. I think people don't really know who Wayne Gretzky is or don't know the history of him. So maybe I need to educate those on a bit of a history lesson. Yeah, he might have some affiliations with Donald Trump. Whatever. I'm pretty sure he is very patriotic to the country of Canada and to the city of Edmonton. Still, after all these years, I've seen enough out of Wayne Gretzky to know that he always looks at Edmonton as one of the most amazing places to live. He's always touted very highly about it. He's always spoken highly of Canada. He defended Canada. I'm going to also add to that, he defended Canada. I think it was the 2006 Winter Olympics when he went on the podium there and went on a rant about how other teams take cheap shots at the Canadian teams. He bawled his brains out when he got traded to LA. This man is nothing but Canada. And for someone to think just because he has maybe a friendship with Donald Trump, I get it. There's a lot of shit going on in the world with politics right now, and I'm not going to get into that. But to desecrate his statue like that is it's something I need to speak on and speak how pissed off I am. And I'm going to get more into that a little bit later. We have 4 games on tap to discuss as the Oilers came back home from a road trip out in New York and then played Utah, Seattle, Winnipeg. And unfortunately, we lost our 2 big boys this week in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. It's sounding like it might be just a week. Let's hope that they're not just pulling the wool over our eyes just to kind of keep us settled down and not hit a panic. But unfortunately, yeah, they are out, and we're hoping the team can rally without them. We're going to go into the upcoming games as the Oilers are set to take on they are set to take on Dallas. Again, another rematch with Seattle and the Battle of Alberta, which could be a very interesting game because that final wild card spot is up for grabs and a new team has taken over that position and bouncing out Calgary and Vancouver. We're going to get into all that right away. But before I get into that, If you guys could be so kind to hit that like, share, and subscribe button for me if you like the content I deliver. Also, hit the notifications because I am kind of sporadic on this channel when I do it on Sundays, as I tend to jump around. This is a 4 o'clock episode. Sometimes I do a 7 o'clock episode, and so forth and so forth. So yeah, that would be really good of you. Okay, let's go down the lineup for today, as we're going to talk about the Oilers and Rangers, then get into the Utah Hockey Club taking on the Oilers, and then we're going to go around the league with some of the news and a little bit more venting about the Gretzky thing. And then I'm going to get into the Jets and then the Kraken. We're going to take a look at the updated standings, new poll question, upcoming games, and final thoughts. And for the final thoughts, let's discuss the act of vandalism that took place in Edmonton on Friday night. That would be a topic I would like to talk about. But let's get into this episode with the final game of the Edmonton Oilers road trip, as they were at MSG taking on the Rangers, and they fared up fairly decently, as they did win 3-1, and I can't really complain. So it would start off at 1917 of the first period, where Corey Perry would get his 15th on the power play from Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Leon Draisaitl. Speaking of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, he had a hell of a week. In the second period, Cooley would get his 18th from Panarin and Trocheck, tying the game. And I don't have actually a time of goal for that. That must be a miscue on the score. But it happened at some point in time in the second period. In the third period, Victor Arvidsson would get his 9th at 6:09, giving the Oilers a 2-1 lead. And then Connor McDavid at 16:35 would pretty much seal the deal for the Edmonton Oilers, getting a goal assisted by Kulak and Nugent-Hopkins. You're going to hear that name a lot this week because Nugent-Hopkins had a hell of a game. As far as the tenders go, it would be Stuart Skinner having a pretty good evening with a .955 save percentage, stopping 21 of 22 shots that came his way. Shesterkin an .870. Shesterkin has a big paycheck. Skinner doesn't. So that kind of worries me of where this might be heading in the direction for Skinner going down the road. We're going to take a look now at some of the stats for this game, as it would be 23-22 for Edmonton for shots on goal. Hits went to the Rangers, 18-17. Face-off win percentage went to the Oilers at 51.1%. The power play Oilers were 1 for 4. However, were amazing on the kill, as they knocked out all 3 kills that were sent their way. For block shots, the Oilers outblocking the Rangers 19-16 giveaways. Unfortunately, Oilers gave the puck away 2 more times than the Rangers, which isn't not a big deal. Again, a .955 save percentage for Stuart Skinner, and the Oilers would move on with the win on this one. Some of the good numbers and other numbers that I did take note: McDavid and Wallman, 3 giveaways each for the bad aspect of things. Brown, Draisaitl, and Perry all were a -1. And this is kind of tit for tat. I mean, the Oilers won this game. It's hard to dig up some tangible negative stats about this game, so I'm just kind of rambling some of the ones that kind of came across my mind, but realistically, not really a big deal. Draisaitl, 3 of 9 on draws for 33%. That kind of surprised me. He's usually much better on the dot. As far as the good, Arvidsson, 4 shots, 1 goal. Stuart Skinner, 21 of 22 saves, as I mentioned. And the Oilers improved to 19-13 on the road, 19-13-2 on the road this season. The stars for the game would be Victor Arvidsson with 1 goal, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins with 3 assists, and Connor McDavid with 1 goal. Okay, so then the Edmonton Oilers would head back home and take on the club from Utah. That's right, the Utah Hockey Club. Still unnamed. Don't know when that's coming. Hopefully before next season, but we'll see. And we'll get into that one right now. And let me queue up. Gotta get my graphic here done. As this would be an absolute blowout presented by the Oilers on their first game back. Quite an impressive result as they would destroy the Utah Hockey Club by a count of 7-1. Let's get on with the numbers here. It would start off with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins getting a shorthand goal at 12:28, and that would be unassisted. Followed by Zach Hyman getting his 23rd from Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Connor McDavid. Again, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was all over the map this week as far as good stats go. Connor McDavid, his 26th from Ekholm and Bouchard. Zach Hyman, he would get his 24th from Ekholm and McDavid. Podkolzin would get his 7th from Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. This is now a 5-0 game for the Edmonton Oilers when Sean Durzi would finally break the curse or whatever, getting his 2nd of the season from Cerrone and Cooley. 5-1. Then it would be Ekholm and Victor Arvidsson ending it off the night. And one of the things that you'll notice on this stat, Leon Draisaitl did not get a point. This would end his streak. And unfortunately, he would sustain an injury. He replayed the whole game, but he suffered some kind of injury. My suspicion, just by the way he was walking or skating, I'm almost thinking he might have got that high ankle sprain again, but we'll see. But it had an eerie, familiar feeling of when he got that high ankle sprain against the LA Kings a couple years ago in the playoffs. So, Calvin Pickard, he had a .967 save percentage, stopping 29 out of 30, so a good effort on his part. You can't say enough. Can't say enough about that. Let's go into some of the additional stats that came place with it. Shots on goal. The Oilers had 43-30, so they won that area. Utah won the hits 22-18. They also won the face-off win percentage at 50.9. Oilers were 0 for 3 for the power play, but again, they were dominant on the kill. Block shots 22-13 for the Oilers, 5-4 for giveaways for Utah. And again, Calvin Pickard had a .967 save percentage. So just a phenomenal night. Our tenders, when they're good, they're great. And when they're bad, they're bad. And, you know, they're very inconsistent. That's the one problem with our tenders this year. So as far as other numbers, as far as the bad one goes, Leo's point streak ends at 18 games. Kasperi Kapanen was a -1, and only Perry and Kulak did not register a single shot on goal. As far as the good goes, Hyman, McDavid, and Nuge all +4 with 3 points each. The Oilers blank Utah 3-0 in the season series, and no player, I think I meant to write had 23 minutes or higher. So it was definitely a nice balance by Knobloch to not overuse McDavid, overuse Nurse, overuse Draisaitl. Definitely a nice blend. And I think that's important because when you get into a situation where they are now and they can't rely on those top dogs, you have to have those players getting the experience of knowing what to do and being able to execute. And you need that practice. You need that in-game practice. First star, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, 1 goal, 2 assists. Second star is Zach Hyman, 2 goals, 1 assist. And Matthias Ekholm, 1 goal, 1 assist are your stars for this particular game. And we're down 2 games with 2 more to go. And we get into a bit of a break here as we're going to get into around the league and the top stories that are kind of kicking in right now. And got word early this morning that Patrick Maroon told the St. Louis Press last night, I believe it was, or the night before, that he does intend on retiring at the end of this season. So 3 Stanley Cups, a good career for him. He was one of those guys I loved when he was an Edmonton Oiler. So best wishes to him going further, going on with his next endeavors in life. I would have liked to see him stay in Edmonton Oiler a little bit longer, but if he did, he probably wouldn't have got those Stanley Cups. Also, Dan Friedkin is a name that you may hear of in the next few years, as he is making a strong push to get a team into Houston for an expansion. Nothing has been announced yet, so don't quote me for anything. But apparently, they've had several meetings with being the NHL, have had several meetings with this Dan Friedkin, and we're going to see what happens there to see if Houston ends up with a team. And again, the top story, which is what I basically started off the episode with, is the disrespect to the statue in Edmonton as it was vandalized and desecrated. Again, I'm not going to put up the photos of the actual image. It is online if you want to look at it. I don't need to see shit on Wayne Gretzky's face, so I'm not going to post it for you guys. An absolute bullshit act. If you want to be political, be political. By no means is Wayne Gretzky unpatriotic to Canada or to the city of Edmonton. So those people who were doing it, whatever, you guys need to maybe look into getting some kind of medical guidance in your mental health, because you're obviously very delusional. And that's all I have to say. I'm very pissed off that happened, though. And that, to me, is the top story of the week going forward. We got one comment coming in. And, okay. Renegade Man, this is kind of unrelated to it, so I'll kind of save that comment for a little bit later, Renegade Man. If you have any comments towards what your thoughts on this Gretzky thing is, I'll gladly post what you have to say right away here. And we're going to move on. Okay, now we get into the Jets and the Oilers. And I'm just going to quickly make this one comment that Renegade Man has. McDavid and Draisaitl being hurt means everyone needs to step up. This is the case. And what I also said earlier, Renegade Man, is when Knobloch is giving these guys 25 minutes and then all of a sudden you get into a situation where you don't have these guys, they're like, you can practice all you want, but in-game practice is going to be your true practice to be able to defend the situation when these kind of things come up. So they look good. I did like what Skinner brought to the table the last couple of games. Nuge has been phenomenal this week. And okay, so Renegade Man, you do have a comment on the vandalism of the statues. I just want to see what you have to say here. I don't see what the reason to vandalize a statue unless you have a mental health issues and need to seek help, just like I said, yeah. I mean, like I said, and I'm going to say this again, Wayne Gretzky is very patriotic. He fought for Canada in I think it was the 06 Olympics when he was running that team. He went up to the podium, went off on a tantrum. Watch these videos, guys. If you need a little history lesson, type in Wayne Gretzky. Watch some of his videos, and you'll know how patriotic he is to Canada. So what? He has a little affiliation with the the President of the United States, who right now a lot of people in Canada really don't like. I, for one, don't. I don't care for what he's been doing. But I'm not connecting the dots to him, at all. Elon Musk, that's a different kind of situation. I didn't want to, like I say, I'm going to try to keep politics out of this because this is a hockey channel, and that's what I want to discuss. And when it comes to the political aspects, it's within the game. I want to kind of keep it to that. Excuse me. Okay, we will get into, one more comment here from our Renegade Man. I'm hoping to see what Trent Frederick brings. If played great, I hope they will re-sign him. I think he's going to be that. I don't expect him to be a great forward, but I expect him to be that difference forward, that get in your face kind of guy, kind of what Evander was when he was in his prime before the unfortunate injury to his wrist. That's what I think Frederick will bring to the table. So let's hope we get that out of him. All right. Let's go on to the Jets and Oilers game that took place a few nights ago. And I'm going to be honest with you. This game really, really did impress me for the fact that they didn't have McDavid for half the game, I believe. I think it was the halfway point in the second period when he got injured. They didn't have Draisaitl, yet they were able to play a pretty strong game, drag the Winnipeg Jets, an absolute juggernaut, into overtime, a definitely Stanley Cup contender in the Jets. So I like what I saw out of the Edmonton Oilers in this game, as it was a 4-3 game, went into overtime. Started with Jeff Skinner. He had an amazing game. It was an unassisted goal at 5:28. Cole Perfetti would tie it at 13:39, and we would go into the second period with a 1-1 tie. Jeff Skinner would get his second of the night and his 13th of the season at 5:30. Josh Morrissey would tie it up at 7:41, and this chess game would continue on into the third period when Brandon Tanev would give the Jets the first lead of the game at 3:56. However, Zach Hyman, absolute clutch at 14:26, would tie it. We go to overtime. Now, unfortunately, what happened here late in the third period is Stuart Skinner was bumped in quite heavily. The spotters yanked him out of the game. Brought in, oh, I hate being on the spot here. Brought in Calvin Pickard, and I don't think he was necessarily the reason why the Oilers lost, but he probably wasn't as warm as he could have been. And regardless, I think the shot was a seeing eye shot by Kyle Connor. Kyle Connor's a good player. You got to keep that into perspective here. As he would win it in overtime from Scheifele and Morrissey at 1:13. And unfortunately, that would be the result. At least we didn't lose Skinner. Having a third body, like there was a point in that game, I'm like, oh my God, we don't have Draisaitl, we don't have McDavid, and now we don't have Skinner. Like that could have been not a good scenario for us whatsoever. Let's take a look at some of the numbers following this game. As for shots on goal, it was the Oilers 24-20. Hits 23-16 for the Jets. The Jets won the dot at 52.9%. Power play, Oilers were 0 for 2. However, killed off all 4 penalties that were set their way. Blocked shots, 19-18. Both teams blocking shots, looking really good. Giveaways, 19-17 for the Oilers. Not really that much of a big margin between the two teams. And both goalies were in this game. Skinner had an 813 and Calvin Pickard with a 750 save percentage. Okay, so with more numbers, McDavid leads the game late into the second period. That's always going to be a bad thing. Victor Arvidsson, -3. allowing Kyle Connor in on 7 shots attempts. This is a guy you have to be aware of where he is on the ice. Make sure you close out his space. You can't let this guy in because he will wreck you. Simple as that. And he did. He wrecked us in overtime. The good stats, Jeff Skinner, 2 goals, +2, and 3 hits. So a great game for Jeff Skinner. Zach Hyman, 1 goal, +2, 3 hits. Ekholm and Bouchard blocked 4 shots each. I usually condemn Bouchard on his play, but in the last couple games, he's been getting a lot better and maybe getting the message from the coaching staff and from the media and whatnot on what people of Edmonton expect out of him and what the team expects out of him. The stars of this game, Jeff Skinner. You never hear him as a star. He was the first star with 2 goals. Kyle Connor, 1 goal. Josh Morrissey, 1 goal and 1 assist. And that would be the 3rd game of the week. And we'll get into the 4th game here very shortly, as the Edmonton Oilers would take on the Seattle Kraken. And that would have been last night. On Hockey Night in Canada. And they also had Stan Bowman on After Hours. And I didn't really care for his explanation on what he thought about getting rid of or not re-signing Broberg and Holloway, saying he wouldn't have had the team that he has now. Well, the team that he has now, because if you think, it's basically Arvidsson was a replacement and Skinner's finally starting to look good. Arvidsson is kind of like off and on, and yeah. So, I mean, you can't really praise the team that you have now as an arguing point, because the team that we could have had with those players, I think, would have been actually better, to be honest with you. But in hindsight, it is what it is. You can't really complain. Okay, let's go on to this game against the Kraken and the outcome of this one. Okay, so let's go through the scoring summary here. Got to cue that up. It would start off with Adam Henry getting his 9th on the power play. This would be assisted by Darnell Nurse and Ekholm at 14:30. And then before the end of the first, Capo Caco, I love that name, Capo Caco, would get it on the power play from Nyman and Beniers at 15:49. It is a 1-1 game at this point in time. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins would regain the lead for the Oilers at 3:48 of the second period with his 18th from Kapanen and Nurse. Then Capo Caco would tie it, his 13th at 7:01. However, Jeff Skinner, again, having another great week. Jeff Skinner and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, for me, are the stars of the week, 100%. This would be from Ekholm and Brown. And then Ryan Nugent-Hopkins would make it 4-2 with his 19th on the power play from Bouchard and Hyman, just at the end of the second period at 18:11. Go into the third period where Seattle would make it close again, closing in, making it a, 4-3 game from Barakowski, getting his 7th from McCann. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, shorthanded goal, empty netter, would get his hat trick, and that would be Wallman also getting the assist on it. Jaden Shorts would kind of try to make it a little bit of a interesting game after it was all done and said. However, it was not enough, and the Oilers would defeat the Kraken 5-4 last night on a Hockey Night Canada. Absolute barn burner of a game. Lots of goals, lots of excitement. Get into some of the stats here. Seattle won the shots on goal with 31-29. Hits on goal hits at 18-13. Edmonton, 55.8 on the faceoff dot. That's something that they've been struggling fairly recently. Pretty convincing win on that percentage yesterday, as they were, definitely a bit better than recent weeks when they were only 42 and 43%. Power play, 2 for 5. Penalty kill, they allowed 1 for 3, so they could have done better, allowing 2 penalty goals or 2 power play goals for the Seattle Kraken. Block shots, 21-12 for Seattle, 17-14 for giveaways. And it would be Stuart Skinner with an 871 save percentage. Again, sub 900 is what you don't really want to see. You know that it's going to happen. It happened to Hellebuck earlier this week. It's going to happen to goalies. You just want to see a little bit more above the 900 games, not this 1 game on, 1 game off, 1 game on, 1 game off. Some of the bad numbers that I took note of, it was the first ever time that both McDavid and Draisaitl were out since McDavid was drafted back in 2016 or 2015, I believe. First time that those 2 players were injured at the same time and not able to play. Stuart Skinner, another sub 900% performance. And again, this is going on a stretch. The game was actually pretty good. These are just numbers I had to dig up to come up with the bad portion of it. Corey Perry was a -2. Not really a big deal. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, hat trick, +2. Now, these are big deals. +2, and he got a hat trick. Great week for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Ekholm, Nurse, 2 assists each, +1. And the 9th straight victory versus Seattle, outscoring them 38-21 in those 9 games. So the Oilers definitely have a handle on the Seattle Kraken as they go forward. And let's hope that they could hit the magic number 10 when they play them later this week. I believe they play them in Seattle on, I think, Thursday. I will go through that very shortly. And the stars here, RNH with the hat trick, Capo Capco with 2 goals, Jeff Skinner, again, a star, the 3rd star with 1 goal. So a pretty good evening altogether. Now we're going to go into the current standings of the league as we check out who's doing what. So from last week to this week, there has been a few subtle changes, and we're going to go through it. But basically, Winnipeg, Dallas, and Colorado in the Central stay in the exact same spots, same order. A little bit of a change with the top 3 in the Pacific as Golden Knights stay in the same spot. However, Edmonton and Los Angeles have basically the Oilers leapfrog over the Kings again and now have home ice advantage. As far as your wild card spots go, there's a new second wild card spot, and that's the St. Louis Blues, as they jumped up 2 spots from last week and now have surpassed both the Calgary Flames and Vancouver Canucks, leaving them on the outside looking in. Minnesota stays in the same spot. And then Utah, Anaheim, Seattle, Nashville, Chicago, and San Jose all stay in their respective spots from the previous week. Basically, those 5 teams, there are 6 teams, will not qualify for the playoffs, as it's pretty much a 3-headed race between St. Louis, Vancouver, and Calgary for that last and final wild card spot. And if the playoffs were to start today, the alignment would be St. Louis taking on the Winnipeg Jets, Minnesota taking on the Vegas Golden Knights, LA taking on the Edmonton Oilers. The right-hand side is the home team. And then you'd have the Avs taking on the Dallas Stars. That would be that'll be a series I'm really going to be watching a lot if that series actually develops to come to be, having the Colorado Avalanche versus Mikko Rantanen, the former Av, now on the Dallas Stars. That would be just, superb. That'll be definitely on my second. I have 3 TVs for when I'm watching hockey so I can see what's going on in the other games. So, I'll definitely have that game playing in the background. Okay, let's go to the poll. Actually, we got a couple more comments here. And let's see. They're all from Renegade Man. Kane is going to pummel everyone when he returns in alignment. I just think he's pumped for the playoffs. I hope so. I still fear that he's lost a bit of a step, Renegade Man. Ever since he had that injury that Pat Maroon, who's soon to retire, did when he was at Tampa Bay Lightning, and it was by accident. I'm not by any means blaming Pat Maroon for that. It was just a very fast and freak accident. Everyone knows that. Hyman Wallman hopefully could get Swayman, even if it's a pipe dream with his salary. Oof. I wouldn't be sold on Swayman now, not for the wage that he's getting. I mean, that contract could have single-handedly be the reason why the Boston Bruins totally dismantled their team. I wouldn't. I don't want him at that price. I really don't. I'll be honest with you. I mean, if they're willing to eat salary, I would take it. But I still think I still believe in Skinner a little bit. We need the defense to be much better in front of those tenders too, you know. And they have to own up a little bit to their thing as well. All right, let's get into the poll question as we move on here. With McDavid and Draisaitl out for what is expected to be a week or two, will the rest of the team step up and persevere? If I'm gonna base it off of the sample size that I've seen so far, I'm going with the yes, because they actually looked pretty good with those players so far out of the lineup, taking the Jets to overtime. They lost to the Jets, but they did take them to overtime, and the injury actually for McDavid started in the second period. So there was a lot that could have went wrong, and they were able to still grip on and play very well. The Kraken, well, Kraken's kind of a team that's not really a contending team, so you got to take that for what it's worth. But I like what I'm seeing out of Skinner right now. So let's hope that we can still see, and then we're talking about Jeff Skinner now. Hopefully we can still see Jeff Skinner doing very good. So I'm gonna right now, if I was to vote, and I don't vote, but if I was to vote right now, I'd be voting yes going forward. Let's take a look at the upcoming games. There's 3 this week. And again, I'm just going to go quickly over some of the stats. I'm not going to ramble on about every single stat. Wednesday, they are still at home against Dallas. Then they will go on a road trip to Seattle for Thursday. And then Saturday versus Calgary. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Seattle on Thursday, because it is a back-to-back situation, and they are trying to get their 10th straight win in a row against this team. I want to see what they actually, how they line up their goaltenders. If they're going to, I would imagine Skinner's going to be against Dallas, and it's going to be, actually, it's tough. It's tough to say, because both Skinner and Pickard are playing pretty good hockey. All right, so let's get into the first game here. And the key stats that I took from all the stats you see on the side here is the Stars are 10th in the league for shots on goal, 4th in the league for shooting percentage and goals. Defensively, they have the number 1 penalty kill in the league and a pretty good goaltender in Jake Ozinger. There's no wonder the Dallas Stars are a key contender for the playoffs. Are they going to be tougher than last year's Dallas Stars? Very likely they will be. As I hate to say this, I'm not anticipating a win for the Edmonton Oilers in this game, but we will see. This will be about as close to a playoff feel as you're going to get to any game until we actually start the playoffs. So this should be a very interesting game. on Wednesday night. They don't play until, wow, that's kind of a long time. Then again, the next night they will take on probably one of the worst teams in the league, in the Seattle Kraken, as unfortunately Seattle started off their first couple years. They weren't too bad, but they really took a dip this year. I don't know if it has anything to do with the fact that Hackstall's in, or Hackstall was in, and they fired him, and then they added the new coaching staff there. But they're definitely not as good as what they were. Seattle's best offensive trait is their shooting percentage, as they are tied for 12th in the league. That's their best stat that they have, tied for 12th in the league. However, it don't mean much if they can't generate chances, as they are 24th in the league for shots on goal, and they, the bright side that they do have is they are very disciplined in the league, only third for penalty minutes. And I think it was 6.5 minutes per game. Yeah, 6.5 minutes per game. So they are pretty good in that regard. This should be an easy win for the Oilers, but we'll see. All right. Get into the next one. When they take on the Calgary Flames, the Battle of Alberta. Calgary 24. The 24-25 edition of the Calgary Flames really lacks in scoring ability, as they are currently ranked 30th in the league, averaging 2.59 goals per game, 31st in the league for shooting percentage, and 30th in the league for faceoffs. 27th penalty kill, just an all-round mess. Yet still, they are contending for a wild card spot, which is, when I look at those numbers, I'm like, how are they even still in the mix? But they still are in the conversation. They could still get that second wild card in the West and somehow make the playoffs, and maybe do something in the playoffs. Who knows? Because once you're in the dance, you're in the dance. So yeah. I personally don't think Calgary should make the playoffs. They're just not good enough. I want to see good teams in there. I'd rather see, actually, out of the three, I hate to say it, but I'd rather see St. Louis. I just think they are more of a team that is going to be, that has some strength and can win games. And what I saw out of Holloway and Broberg so far added to that team, they're looking good. St. Louis is looking good. Vancouver has had controversy all year long, and I think that's affected them. Pedersen's not Pedersen. Yeah, so we'll see. And that'll be the three games. Now we're going into, oh, I forgot to go upcoming games. Okay, so we'll go there. We'll go into final thoughts. And I'm going to just see if there was any comments towards the whole Gretzky thing. Let's just see. Okay, so Renegade Man, this is a comment. Okay, I think I'm playing this comment already for a second time. I don't see what the reason to vandalize the statue unless you have mental health. Yes. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think pretty much I got everyone's thought here. And we're going to, let's see. Even though Holloway should have stayed, he won't be getting the minutes that have with St. Louis if he stayed in Edmonton. But playing him with Savoy would be awesome. Yeah, you know what? And maybe that is the big difference there, Renegade Man. Maybe you are right. Maybe he wouldn't be getting those minutes and he wouldn't be flourishing like he is in St. Louis. I think he is a guy that relies on being the man. And it's kind of like Jeff Skinner, too. Jeff Skinner wasn't getting those minutes until recently, and look at him starting to fly out of the boat. My last and final comment for this night before I wrap up this episode for this week is, the disregard. I don't know if it's woke culture or what. I don't know the exact reason behind it, but to do that to the Gretzky statue is like why? It's not going to change anything. If If he's a friend of Donald Trump, he's a friend of Donald Trump. If he now, if someone can come to me with tangible video or tangible evidence that Wayne Gretzky is in alignment with the whole idea of Canada being a 51st state, then I have a different opinion of Wayne Gretzky. I'll totally have a different opinion of Wayne Gretzky. But until I see that tangible evidence, it's just idiocy to do what was done. And I don't think, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think it was a hockey fan that would do it. And anyone that knows Wayne Gretzky's history and his loyalty to the city of Edmonton, none of those guys would have done it. So that's all I have to say about that. I'm hoping that there is enough video surveillance that they can arrest the idiot for doing that and maybe teach him a bit of a lesson, even though right now our catch and release program is working pretty good in Canada, as criminals don't really stay locked up anymore. And hopefully that will change. Again, I hate to go down the political street, but an election has been announced today, and hopefully that will change with whoever governs this country as the next prime minister in the next election. Anyway, I'm out. That's about all I have to say, guys. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for your comments, Renegade Man. Always appreciated. We will see you next week sometime. Don't know when. But again, I do ask you to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And definitely the notification button, as I, even today, I was going to be on 3 separate times from 5, and then I jumped it to 7, and then I jumped it to 4 BC Standard or Pacific Standard Time. I'm done rambling, guys. We'll see you next week. Have a good week.